Everybody's dying right now.
What is up, guys? You got one more hour of NBA content today on the channel as we break down the final two games of the slate for the late slate here at Awesemo.com. I'm Chris Spags, joined by a man. I don't know how many times you might have seen him on the channel today, at least 2 times, but hey, lucky number 3 coming up right now. He's Eric Lindquist. How you doing, Eric?
Doing well. I think we're both pretty happy with this start. I did something weird that I can guarantee you I haven't done all of NBA season. I played DraftKings only today. I kind of was frustrated with FanDuel, just in terms of trying to figure out what I wanted to do over there today. And I had enough action over on TK that I just kind of took everything off of FanDuel and just said, you know what, we're going to focus on one site. And I also liked a lot of the min plays, and I jammed a ton of Isaiah Hartenstein on the front end of this. So I have no idea how I'm going to end up doing. I need Kyrie to take a nap. That's probably one thing, but otherwise, so far so good.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the main slate a little bit up top. We'll talk about the late slate as well, but make sure you guys smash that like button here, because if it is a show that I am doing before lock, you're going to get some ownership projections at about the halfway point of the show, and that is the case today for this night's slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. I'll give you guys the top 5 owned plays on those 2 top sites on there, so smash that like button here. If we close as we can get to 100, just do the best you can on there. I know as people are filtering into chat as well, don't be surprised if you hear us ask for likes a few more times. We want to make sure to go out strong here, because the late slate show is wrapping up on Wednesday as MLB season kicks into full gear. And one way you can prepare yourself for that MLB inevitability is going to Awesemo.com/join now and using the promo code starting9. It's going to give you 9 days of all the Awesemo plus MLB data for yourself for just $9. It's a great deal. Good way to get your feet wet with MLB if you haven't played before. And Awesemo's projections, I think, for MLB, they're great for every sport, obviously, but MLB, I know a lot of people have made a killing off of over the years. Going to be the case again coming up with opening day on Thursday. So get in now, go to Awesemo.com/join and use that promo code starting9. And let's talk about this. I guess let's talk about the main slate a little bit more, Eric, because you were mentioning some things that I thought were interesting. And one thing that I think we were both in agreement on before the show, I said on Live Before Lock with Josh that Kelly Olynyk to me looked like a lock play, ended up blocking him in on DraftKings. And I think right now, even assuming Olynyk peters out a little, I feel like he was the value play to really trust amidst a lot of that early ownership going to guys that seem pretty speculative on the Wizards in particular.
Yeah, the Kelly Olynyk, just an absolute smash. I loved that play the second that we got it. Christian Wood, when you didn't see him in the starting lineup, you just kind of assumed that he was going to be out, and then it was just like you couldn't have gotten to too much Olynyk. I didn't get quite to 100%, but I'm close to it. Somebody who we've seen in his Miami time, anytime he gets ample minutes, 4,400 on this crappy of a basketball team. Give me all of that you got. That was never really a question. And yeah, Jerome Robinson, he's 3K. So I didn't completely hate it. I was lighter than the field because I thought you probably needed 30 to 35 out of every position. Hard to ask for Jerome Robinson to get there for you in that kind of a spot. Obviously playing a lot better than I expected, but I have enough that it's not going to burn me significantly in like the $15 and some of these other things. It looks like I'm still going to be doing all right. I mean, the key was just making sure that you jammed a bunch of Russ Westbrook. I really liked getting on Porzingis. I liked Zion Williamson. I liked Jason Tatum. Power forward was kind of a position that I was paying up for a lot. And so Isaiah Hartenstein, kind of a necessity there. Somebody that Steve Buzzard put me on in the show before it in the 3-man booth, Jaden McDaniels is going completely bonkers for Minnesota right now at extremely low ownership, like around 2 or 3% I saw in a couple of like the $4 that I was in. And so I'm really, really happy about the situation I'm at here, but it really comes down to I need to get 25 to 30 out of Hartenstein minimum to have any chance to take something down tonight.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat with you. Hartenstein, to me, ended up being, once you know he was starting, and as I think we talked about in the Live Before Lock show, I think really every show today talked about the possibility of Hartenstein playing a good amount of minutes as Larry Nance got downgraded to questionable, eventually ruled out. And it sucks that he's playing Utah. Definitely not a great matchup, though I guess maybe that does lend itself better to him getting that start. That we'll see how he does. That game started, I think, 5 minutes ago, or started, and now it'll start in about 5 more minutes. Yeah. But that spot for Hartenstein, and Eric, we talk a lot about swap-demizing on here, but was Hartenstein a guy that you were planning to get to all day, or was he a guy that you just ended up swap-demizing to? Because for me, I wasn't sure about the play going in with Nance, potentially playing any minutes. Once he was locked in, or once Nance was ruled out, even before I started starting lineup, I just swap-demized immediately to get as much Hartenstein as possible.
Yeah, this was a Rinpack special from last night where he addressed him twice on the Slate Starter podcast and was like, "This is a high fantasy point per minute guy." In his limited minutes this year, already over a point per minute on DraftKings. In the past, we've seen him with the Rockets get an unabated run. That one day he was super chalk, where he was like 70-80% or whatever. The day after going for 40 plus. And then he burned the entire universe because he didn't have a guaranteed roster spot. And they played PJ Tucker for like 40 minutes of that game in the bubble. So I do like Hartenstein as a player. I think he can get it done on a fantasy point per minute basis. So now he's in the starting lineup for, I'm assuming, the first time in his career. I didn't see anything else as I was going through, but all I know is that if you give me anybody for 24 to 26 minutes, I mean, he's 3,200. How bad can it really be for you in this spot? Center wasn't the most stacked situation that we've had, especially on an 11-game slate. I think it was one of the weaker positions relative to the other positions that we've had on pretty much any of these other big slates. So I liked getting to a ton of him on the front end. I like getting to Moses Brown too. Hopefully he can salvage a little bit here. I didn't end up that over the field because I guess he was 27% in the $15 on DK, but looking at this profile of this Cleveland game, I really need that to stay close. And now the one other thing about late swap demise, I'll just kind of keep going for a minute. Marcus Morris was a guy that I locked in because I thought he gave me a little bit more swap optimization to some of these late games if news broke. And if I got stuck with him, I wasn't going to be too upset. But I really wanted to get that Cleveland starting lineup. And if I had like Lamar, if I had like Stevens, or if I tried to take guesses on like Torian Prince or something else, I'm sitting there with 3K and I don't have really anywhere to pivot to. So I went up to Marcus Morris. I ended up getting like 25% of him. I now have like 1% of him, I believe. And it all became Thomas Satoransky, who I would have had no access to for this late game for the main slate had I not waited on it.
That's interesting. And that's one thing where, is that something you'll normally try to do, Eric, where you're trying to keep guys in? And obviously on the Slate show, we are talking a little more while the show is on the air, talking about some of the process behind these things to set yourself up for success on nights where hopefully the slate won't be too crazy now. I don't think we foresee any weird news coming out, but some nights you do have to prepare for that stuff and do it well. Is that something, Eric, where you're normally just putting in a guy, like that, where you're hoping that news is going to open up, or I guess if there's a whiff of news, you're willing to go there? And also, is it you're only putting guys in who project well, who you could live with if that news doesn't come, like a Marcus Morris?
Yeah, it's interesting because I never expected, I didn't even think about the Kobe White news, really. Just if I'm being completely honest, I didn't think about that. But we talk a lot about having placeholders and having access and waiting for news to drop. And it was happening more earlier in the season when we had games that were getting canceled off the schedule entirely. When we were having a lot of this crazy news breaking, you wanted to be able to wait on news. But even in this situation, I thought 35% was a large number for Jerome Robinson. I thought 25% for Denny Avdia was a large number. And I knew that Cleveland, there was access to a couple of these pieces. They're going to have to play guys. Like that's what it comes down to. Like, yeah, it became a little bit thinner, but like I knew Hartenstein, if he got the start, was going to be my highest exposed player of the entire night. And I don't think there was any way around that. And so I felt good about playing him. 3,200, if he ends up coming off the bench, playing 15 minutes even, like you still at a spot where you're looking at it. And I still don't know what those minutes are going to look like. I have no idea, but I do know that more than likely, if he doesn't get in foul trouble against Rudy Gobert, he's going to absolutely smash in this spot, just as a fantasy point per minute guy. They're going to see what they have. Cleveland's just going to find out what they have in this situation. They're 16-point dogs. I'm not expecting the game to stay close, but why wouldn't you keep Isaiah Hartenstein out on the court in this situation anyway? But yeah, Morris gave me a little bit more salary. I thought that with Steph Curry, if he ended up getting ruled out, there were ways to get to Poole. There were ways to get to other guys. Draymond Green was somebody that I was kind of hoping to get to a little bit when I was thinking about playing FanDuel. When I went over to DraftKings, didn't have to think about it too much. But for the most part, I just thought it was an amazing late swap slate, and it kind of turned out that way. We'll just see how this Cleveland game pans out for me.
Are there any final late swaps, or I guess any that you made in your process where a lot of it was you going to Hartenstein, a lot of it was you getting away from Morris in the late game, but were there any noticeable jumps that you saw for the guys who were going to have in the two late slate games?
Yeah, so I ended up on a lot more Colin Sexton, just kind of matriculating in. I already had a little bit at 7,400. I turned a lot of my Paul George and Kawhi into him as well. I think that this is still a good spot for him. I don't expect that game to stay close, but if it does in any way, shape, or form, I do have a couple shares of Rudy Gobert because, again, he's going up against Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, is it really going to be that surprising if Rudy Gobert goes for 55, 60? I don't think so. And so I thought from a center perspective that he had a lot more upside than the public was really representing for him. So I was happy to go that direction. I also think that there are these other pieces. Like, I don't think Taurean Prince was going to be a guy that I was going to get to on the front end of it. I saw that his ownership got up a little bit there, but Broderick Thomas, I had a ton of. I had about 22% of him coming into that last game. I now have like 2%. I made it every single share of that into Hartenstein, was allowed to make a couple of those pivots that were just opened up from Morris just by having him in my forward or my utility slot. And I was able to turn it into a lot of Sandaransky. And if I got stuck with any more, so be it. But it just gave me as much flexibility as possible. And when you have pieces like Jerome Robinson and Deni Avdija who are this owned, who haven't broken the slate yet by any means, you've got an opportunity to really take advantage of the field with these Cleveland guys. And now with Satoransky, who I'm projecting for, I think, even a little bit more than Alex, like close to 30, because Kobe White off the floor is something I never expected, and I'm pretty stoked about now.
What did the Avdija and Jerome Robinson ownership end up as?
I believe in the $15 it was. I'll just pull it up here. I think it was 25%, right around there for Avdija. And then it was 35% for Jerome Robinson. Yep, 35.13. And then let's see. I know I had one lineup with Avdija. Yeah, 24.25% in the $15. Those are large numbers.
Yeah, I ended up getting just under 3% of Jerome Robinson. Didn't get any of Avdija. I made those cases for why I wasn't going that way on the Live Before Lock show. So I guess I'm glad it's working out. And honestly, for you guys out there, it's probably not going to kill you or be the thing that keeps you from cashing, given how much of the field is there. But that is sort of the important parts of swapping around, swap-optimizing, doing that on Fantasy Crutcher when you can, because those are the slivers of edge that you can get. Let's start to talk about the late slate here. And again, guys, make sure you hit that like button, help us out. We'll give you guys some of the top 5 owned plays on DraftKings and FanDuel coming up the halfway point of the show in about 18 minutes for our late night version of Money Time. So make sure to hit that like button now. Show us a little love. Let's talk about the Clippers, because to me all day, the Clippers looked like one of my preferred plays on the slate, where Kawhi in particular, I thought offered a bit of upside on DraftKings for a salary that seems a little bit too cheap. Reggie Jackson was a play that I was kind of battling with all day, where he projected well for me, but I think I just felt like the ownership early in the day looked too high. It ended up being on the last ownership projections run I believe we had was around 15% expected ownership for him. So not a chalk play by any stretch. I think for the late slate, I think he's more of a building block, Eric. And I think that's sort of where I would go for the late slate, is Kawhi and Reggie Jackson are going to be the ones that I think are building blocks. I think Zubac also more appealing for the late slate than he was for the main slate, where you had so many value center options, as well as the Moses Browns of the world, the Robert Williams of the world, the new class of high upside fantasy centers. But how are you feeling about the Clippers? Who's a priority for the late slate that maybe wasn't there for you quite as much on the main slate?
I think Reggie Jackson's ownership might get to a place where I might actually be a little light on him. I mean, I'm going to make 10 lineups on both sites, so I'm not going to go completely nuts on it. I'm going to make sure that we keep track of this news and make sure that everything's good to go for my main slate stuff, because I do think I have a couple of good chances at a top finish over on DK today. But Reggie Jackson, no problem going to a little bit. Yeah, his ownership was really, really up there earlier in the day. It's tempered off a little bit here. 4,300 over on FanDuel. It's just a low number. 4,400 on DraftKings. Equally as advantageous in a lot of ways. But we saw 2 games ago, he shot the ball about as well as you possibly can in a terrible, like a low scoring game, 98-95 against the Spurs. So 24.6% usage, but I don't know. I think what we saw last game, the 15% usage, is a little bit more indicative of who he is than that win against Philly. Obviously, this is going to be a fast-paced matchup against Milwaukee, so there's going to be points scored. He can go out and definitely spike an upside, and I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm curious what that ownership will finish at as we get closer to lock here, because Satoransky, I do expect to continue to climb as we're talking about him.
Yeah, Reggie Jackson right now on FanDuel looks like he will be a very popular play of a $4,300 value price tag on there. On DraftKings, it seems like Reggie, let me just pull him up real fast. Reggie, also the chalk play for the night slate. That does give me some concern. I still like the price point more because you're not going to get quite as much value for the late slate. So for me, I ended up with under 3% of Reggie Jackson for the main slate. For the night slate, I think I'm just going to put him in the 2 lineups I'm building for DK's big tournament, because I just feel like that. I don't know. I guess really who would be the plays you would consider a swap or a pivot off of Jackson? Because we don't have that backup point guard to point to really, where Lou Williams isn't there anymore. Even Patrick Beverly not available. Luke Kennard not projected for big minutes by Awesemo, under 10 for him. Terrence Mann projected for big minutes, but certainly has not been a high usage guy, even though I know he's one of your favorites, Eric. But is there a pivot to you that really springs to mind to Reggie Jackson? Is it maybe just playing Kawhi and Paul George and not getting any of Reggie?
I think it's probably going the man route if we're just talking salary for salary. Obviously, different positions on FanDuel, so that's kind of a moot point there. But on DraftKings specifically, you get to save $100. Not that you need really any savings here. He's just going to be a little bit lower owned, and I'm kind of like happy to get there in that direction. Let's see, yeah, Reggie Jackson just leading the slate right now in terms of our ownership that we have going for him. I'm ready for that update to come through because I'm expecting a couple of these guys to shoot up the board, like Satoransky, Drew Holiday, now that he doesn't have a minutes limit. Terrence Mann isn't like unowned right now at 34%, but I think that we're going to see that go up a little bit, maybe too. Just curious kind of where the rest of the public is going to land on these guards and shooting guards. But everybody kind of like sits in that same price range, even like a different position. But Marcus Morris is at 4,500 over on DK. I think he's going to gain a ton of ownership too. And so like, I'm trying to figure out ways to get over to this Bulls game, because I do think with Kobe White off of that second unit, it even profiles well for somebody like Patrick Williams, who might not see like a minutes boost by any means, but definitely a usage bump. And I like going to a couple of these guys for like some of the more ancillary pieces. Obviously, we know the Milwaukee Clippers game should be fun and up and down too, but Golden State right now, second in the NBA in pace. I kind of want to be a part of that too.
Okay. I want to get more of your thoughts on Chicago, because it does seem like you're definitely the wind's blowing that direction for you a bit more. But let's talk about Milwaukee here, I guess, relative to this match against the Clippers. That does seem, I mentioned on the Live Before Lock show, like feels kind of like an NBA Finals preview, at least on some level, or a potential one. I know there's a lot of Lakers fans that are going to be bullish on their team instead, and certainly can't begrudge that. But the Clippers playing well this year, and I guess, before we get to the Milwaukee side, if you had to choose one, Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, accounting for the fact that right now, Paul George projected for just a bit more ownership, actually a bit more on DraftKings, a lot more on FanDuel. Which play do you prefer out of those two, of the big two for the Clippers?
Oh, for the night slate, I have Kawhi as the highest out of everybody. Did I update that? Yeah. Okay. So Kawhi Leonard, he's the highest owned, I think, on the slate on FanDuel, and I still like siding with him a little bit more there. There's more options that are somewhat viable. Obviously, you have Zach LaVine, Andrew Wiggins, Terrence Mann, some of those guys that I like going to. Chris Middleton and Kawhi are just kind of like in their own little class over on small forward. And then Kelly Oubre, when you're getting Steph Curry back into the mix, isn't nearly as appealing. Nicholas Batum, he's fine if you need a punt, but like, we're not trying to necessarily punt here. I think I would avoid getting down to anybody else besides Patrick Williams, who at 3,600, we know that he has minutes where he's playing into the 30s. They got absolutely run out of the gym against the Spurs. Otherwise, I would think 3,600, even on a main slate, if I was playing over on FanDuel today, I would have definitely had some exposure in that direction, concerning you've seen 32, 31, and 34 minutes. Obviously hasn't done anything with them, and now you're bringing Vooch into the mix, but that's still a low number for a guy who we've seen have some upside at a power forward position. Now it's small forward, so that's more advantageous, and then also much cheaper than that mid 4K range he'd been living in all year.
I like how you're just turning everything into Chicago Bulls talk.
I don't even know what's happening to myself right now. I'm trying to talk myself into an existence, because I've late swapped so hard to some of these guys in a couple of spots. But yeah, I think you're kind of seeing the fact that I expect the ownership to get up there a little bit. I mean, Golden State, this is a good place to be targeting. Like, this game is supposed to be close. You're getting an up-pace matchup for the Bulls going to Golden State here. It's going to be flying up and down equally in a lot of ways. If all that ownership is going to the Clippers, give me a couple of shots on these second unit guys, or guys who are going to get some second unit usage in the Chicago Bulls rotation at like 1/5 of the ownership right now.
Okay. I'm erring a little more side on wanting the Clippers for the night slate, just because I think that there are a lot of ways you're going to find guys having outlier performances, whether it be the big two of Kawhi. Kawhi got 60% of on the main slate. I will have them, I think, in all my lineups for the late slate as well. Again, not doing a bunch of them, just doing the handful that I usually do while doing this show. But in this spot, I'm a little more of a believer in the Clippers. I think the issue too, and maybe this is something that, maybe you're viewing differently for the Bulls. There are a few different directions they could go. Like, my assumption is that Satoransky gets more run. I think think that's sort of the safe one. I think Levine also could get a bit more run, but you do still have Troy Brown, I think, who's going to be available today. He's only in for 2 minutes from Awesemo, but that kind of looms. Garrett Temple's in for 24 minutes from Awesemo. That is more of a reliable play. I think you could see pick up backcourt minutes. Like, there are some ways this could go where you don't see a huge material jump for the Bulls, and in the minutes outlay, I think the usage is going to be a bit better just because of not having Kobe White in there, a guy who does have a 22% usage rate on the year, 21% assist rate. I just have some concern that it may not be that big of a jump. Whereas to me, the Clippers like to play and hang in against Milwaukee. If we're going to say this game is going to hit the Vegas total, a combined total in this game of 231.5, like you need the Clippers to basically be hitting full throttle from a lot of guys, I think. Whereas Chicago might be able to hang in that game and not have an outlier performance would be my one concern.
Yeah, Troy Brown didn't enter the game, so I'm just pulling up the Saturday game because I didn't play on Saturday, but I went back through and was looking
great
at some
slate.
of the.
You missed a lot of fun with the Bucks.
Yeah, it sounded
you're
like
busy
it.
Doing family things, I heard on the tip off, but
I was. Yeah, I'm just a wholesome individual. That's all I'm going to say over and over. Just straight lace, clean nosed. That's all me. Troy Brown didn't enter the game until like the end of the third quarter. They were down 24, so. Troy Brown, I'm not really concerned about. I don't think he's going to even see the court if this game stays close. At least that's my guess. Same thing with Javonte Green, who didn't enter until the 10:28 minute mark of the fourth quarter. So both of those are kind of Xley and off of my projections in general. Minu came in and played like a meaningless 5 minute and 43 second stint. And again, we don't want to fall in love with a one game sample, but what I do fall in love with is seeing what that rotation looks like in a close game, which we haven't seen because we have one example of which to look at. Thomas Satoransky played all the way up until, the 8 minute mark of the third quarter, didn't come back in the rest of the game. Patrick Williams played up until the 9 minute mark of the third quarter, didn't come back in the rest of the game. So both of those two got completely limited in a way where I think you're going to see the ownership come down heavily on both of them because they see 19 minutes and 17 minutes, and that's not indicative of what their role is on this team going forward. So I like targeting those guys and being way, way, way over the field when I think they project closer. Like, I'm not saying that they're the exact same play as Terrence Mann or as Reggie Jackson or Marcus Morris or any of those guys. I think they're all going to project out a little bit better for me, other than Thomas Satoransky, who I'm just kind of way over, I think, than you and Alex. But even Alex has him around 27, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Okay. Yeah, I have no issue with Satoransky. I think he does project well. I just think it maybe won't be a gigantic jump in minutes. And I think it wouldn't shock me to see like a Ryan Arcidiacono get into the rotation. It does look like.
Don't even say those things. Don't do that. Don't put that out in the world.
He is the third string point guard, and they have shown a propensity to want to get another ball handler in there. But Troy Brown in the game that Eric was talking about over the weekend, Troy Brown basically came in and played the Zach LaVine role. It looks like LaVine went out, Brown came in, got up some shots, assisted at a much higher rate, but was basically the backup two guard. So one of Arcidiacono or Brown getting into the rotation wouldn't be a surprise for me today, but either way, I don't think you're probably getting enough minutes to have those guys be usable. I think they just could, they could hurt a LaVine or Eric's favorite guy, Tomas Satoransky, but
we're fighting now, enough. By the way, you just cursed me. Somebody earlier was like, Eric, you're jinxing it. You're talking about your high finish. It's going to happen or it's not. Like, let's be serious. I have no control at this point. Most of my guys have locked other than Satoransky, who, God forbid he were to get scratched or something, but otherwise I have very little exposure outside of Kawhi, Paul George on these late games for the two gamer, and then Satoransky, maybe a little bit of Williams, but yeah, whatever happens. But him talking about Arcidiacono just randomly showing up in the rotation, them are fighting words. Like that's not okay. That's asking for USC to get booted tomorrow. So you don't want that on your conscience.
They're running over everybody. They're unbeatable. What could possibly go wrong with my alma mater? That's the question I would ask. Antoine Murphy throwing out some hot takes about the Bucks bench. And to me on the Bucks today, the only play that I really feel comfortable getting to at any volume would be Giannis. Drew Holiday, I don't love the price point. I feel like you're still paying that tax for Drew Holiday's better games without Giannis, or better game rather without Giannis. Middleton too, I don't love the price point for that. I think there maybe could have been some assumption about the minutes being limited or whatever, maybe Giannis missing again, whatever the case may be on DraftKings, these guys' prices, I think besides Giannis look untenable. And I also think too, people asking about Diakite in the chat are saying Diakite might be a good play. Like, you have Lopez back in there. You don't have Bobby Portis, but I think that means to me potentially more minutes for Thanasis. Thanasis in from Awesemo, 15 minutes for him today. So I think he's the one expecting, or that Alex is expecting, actually maintain some sort of semblance of a role. But it wouldn't shock me to see Jordan Nwora get more run too. I know I've been a Nwora stan. I've talked about it a lot, but he came through in that game, shot really a couple of impressive looks from deep. Like I think he gives them a different angle that, like, Diakite is just kind of a big man who rebounds at a high clip, and it's honestly like a very competent fantasy guy. Like if he's starting, you play him. But today, Eric, do you feel like there's anybody who's going to maintain? I know you didn't play on Saturday, but I'm sure you went through the popcorn machine. Is there anybody who you think maintains some semblance of a real role or an improved role, maybe from having those performances on Saturday?
I just let you go because I completely disagree with you, but you're adorable when you talk. I love watching you do it. It was so nice. You were just like so enthusiastic. You're like, Thanasis is going to go off. No, Thanasis is not going to play more than 12 minutes. Like
Alex has him for 15. So who am I trusting? Eric Lindquist or Alex Baker? I don't know.
Well, I mean, he's also 4K. And what's his letter grade? If you want to just say that right off the bat.
I thought he went off on Saturday. Today.
Oh, he was awesome. Yeah, it sounds like he was
get more minutes. He's not going to go off.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, he definitely could get more minutes. I'm definitely in agreement with you there. I thought you were going to just be Sam Merrill is where I'm planting my flag today.
I think these guys will probably get played more than they should today because people will see that box score from Saturday and assume, oh yeah, these guys have to get more run, but it's like that's just not what the Bucks are going to do at this time.
Then remove them from your player pool and let them pay the rake. That's a great idea because Thanasis, he was fun to watch, I think, on Saturday. I watched like 2 minutes of that game randomly. I was also in La Quinta in a pool, so I didn't really, I wasn't really paying attention to anything else other than like I saw Thanasis and I was like, oh, that's a crazy stat line that he put up. He's pretty good at basketball. He also was playing, I think, the C team of the Knicks, but I digress. Yeah, I don't want any of him. I don't want any of these other ancillary pieces. I think it goes back to pretty much normal. I think if you're taking shots on anybody who might see an increased number of playing time, like Pat Connaughton, at least we have in pegged for like 28 minutes, 5,300 on DraftKings. It's just an awful number to be paying. But hey, I've seen weirder things happen. At least he has the court time to be able to like make something pop. I just don't think you can get it with any of those other guys that, that Axel Tupain, I believe was the other guys. I love that name. That was amazing.
Very, very die-hard villain kind of name.
Yeah, no, it definitely Bond villain, like Dr. No. Specifically, just like Alex Tupain. Oh, yes.
Yeah. And to be clear, I like these Bucks guys, but I'm with Eric, and I think I'm glad we got on the same page, but I wouldn't play these guys. I don't think any of them are going to maintain any sort of meaningful role. And just for the minutes here from Awesemo, you could always get the minutes from Awesemo's projections on the stat lines page if you're an Awesemo Plus member. And if you're not, make sure to go to awesemo.com/join and check out the NBA packages. Minutes wise, he's got Bryn Forbes getting 23. He's got Sam Merrill getting 18. Thanasis getting 15. And then Diakite and Nwora getting 2. So that's Awesemo's rotation view, basically, or how he's approaching the Bucks rotation, because you're going to have 35 minutes going to Giannis, 33 to Middleton, 33 to Drew Holiday, 30 to DiVincenzo. Like there's not a lot of minutes to go around, and you have the Bucks, not being minutes limited, available to play full run, and in a game too that's really competitive. Like I think even if you were playing a blowout build, which you shouldn't be, in my estimation, you're still probably not getting to the Bucks here. So I think that's
the one thing that I have been thinking about a lot on this slate. And I think that it's more viable, I think, on this slate than other ones because some of those Clippers are in that low 4K range. I think if I wanted to, and I think I'm going to build this as we're talking about it, but I was getting on a lot of builds where it was pretty easy to go Drew, Middleton, Giannis, and then get Kawhi and either Kawhi or George, whichever one you wanted, Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann, Batum, and then you play Satoransky with it. Like you do something in that vein and just have like the one piece of the Golden State game, hope that game just kind of gets muddied where Chicago splits minutes with everybody 20, 24 minutes. And then we kind of know where everything is coming out of from this Clippers rotation because we've been seeing it here for a while. The only guy who could randomly come in and like muck that up is Luke Kennard. And I just don't believe in Luke Kennard as a basketball player in general. Nice contract, Clippers. Well done there. But yeah, I think that there is some viability to a stack on this slate more so than others because you're looking at two very, very high-paced games compared to some of the other ones. Like, I guess we have Sacramento out here on the West Coast a lot. We have the Lakers games, which, have been crappier of late, but with AD and LeBron, you were definitely interested in them in the past. But these are some fast-paced West Coast games to finish out the night. I really don't mind stacking it up and trying to find one or two pieces from another game and just hope that one of them stays really close and one of them blows out.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable approach on this particular slate. And I definitely am a big fan of the Clippers. As I mentioned, pretty high on a lot of their core pieces, and Kawhi to me, I think is a must-have play today, but there are definitely some ways to get different. And I would agree, if you were to go a little heavier on Chicago Golden State and maybe only take the best pieces from the Clippers and the Bucks, like if you were to play just Giannis and just Kawhi and then try to get your Satoranskis, honestly, you're really forcing some of the plays for Golden State because of how they're priced for their few games without
I think they're by far the worst team on this slate. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, I think let's tease that out for after the break. By the way, Russ up to 94.5 fantasy points.
I love him so much. I
mean,
is an unbelievable was this a good day to have 98% of him? I think it was.
Yeah, I just got 80, and I kind of wish I had just lock buttoned him in, but 35, 14, and 21 assists. That's dumb. Why I was saying it earlier in the day, but when Beal is out, just play Russ.
Pokashevsky, let's go. Oh, if I might have to send Josh Engelman a gift basket if Pokashevsky goes off. I think he brought him up for some reason out of the middle of nowhere, and I had like zero interest in him, and he's got 27 right now with 6 minutes left in the third. So that would be fun. Hartenstein 2.5, that's not great. But yeah, Svi needs to go for us. I think that's an important part of tonight.
Yes, Svi with his 9 fantasy points the last I looked. Not doing the best, but there's still time. Can't tilt too early here, even though we are tilting a little here as we always do.
I tilt when I wake up in the morning. I mean, this is what I do. This is what I'm known for. You gotta live your life the way, live your truth. That's my truth. I'm just around the horn tilting, just making sure that everybody knows that they have somebody else that feels their pain.
All right, it's the back half of the show, so it's money time. And also, we got one item, too, about Memphis. Desmond Bane starting for Grayson Allen, who's hurt. And there's the cash register signed. Now, don't sleep on Tyler, the producer, by the way. He's going to get there. It might be a minute late, but he's going to get that sound effect.
On delay.
Let's talk about the top 5 owned plays on DraftKings and smash the like button here, guys. And if you want to get the ownership projections for every slate, including the night slates, some of the off schedule slates, really, if there's a big tournament for it, there are going to be player projections. There's always going to be player projections, but the ownership projections as well. Let's go to awesemo.com/join. Check out all the packages. Top 5 owned plays on DraftKings for the night slate. Number 1, Reggie Jackson at 59%. Number 2, Marcus Morris at 55%. Number 3, Paul George at 54%. Number 4, Kawhi Leonard, 48%. Number 5, James Wiseman at 44%. Eric, out of those 5 names real fast, and we may get an ownership update here before lock because as Eric was talking about, there's been some movements with the Bulls that maybe change things a little. But with those 5 guys, Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Paul George, Kawhi, and Wiseman, does one stand out as being less good than the others relative to ownership?
Wiseman. And I don't think it's relatively close for me. I would have 0% Wiseman. I still have 0% Wiseman. I think at 4K on FanDuel, he's at least in play. But you just listed off DraftKings, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, we're not going to play a 5,200 Wiseman in this situation anymore. I don't know. I think Vooch can run him off a basketball court at this moment. Wiseman's somebody who's a very raw talent. I really enjoy watching him play basketball. He can run the ball up the floor and do some weird stuff. He's been doing a little bit of like pick and pop 3 stuff, which is weird. That's going to go away with Steph Curry back. But I think a lot of his offensive upside at 5,200 is kind of carved into Curry can create a little bit, but his assist rate's down. It's basically Draymond Green, who's the main facilitator on this team. Like, he's not going to be looking to get James Wiseman overly involved. I know that they have some kind of chemistry, but it's Steph Curry and Draymond that are going to go back and forth. 5,200 just feels like a big number. I think all of these Golden State guys have just taken such a downgrade for me. Obviously, you bring Steph Curry in, that's going to happen. So 5,200 James Wiseman. Right now, we're projecting him for 27 minutes. That just feels a little yucky on this slate, even on a 2-gamer.
Yeah, I agree. I put Wiseman in one of my lineups that I'm putting in just because I think the price point works well, but I don't feel that great about the play. And then I'm seeing that he's number 5 owned. Honestly, Satoransky being viable, maybe if that does come up a little, maybe Wiseman comes down to a more playable ownership. But if that holds with the final ownership numbers here for the night slate, I agree. I think Wiseman, the play that I like the least there, because for any of the Clippers, you can at least justify like, hey, this is the day to have an outlier performance because Milwaukee's going to let you get up some threes, and that's going to create the volatility that some of these guys need. On FanDuel, the top 5, you have Kawhi Leonard at 60%, Giannis at 58% is number 2, Paul George number 3 at 52%, Steph Curry number 4 at 50%, and Zach LaVine number 5 at 48%. Same question here, Eric. I'll spoil how I'm feeling about it. I think Steph to me stands out. I know point guard doesn't look like the best position on FanDuel, but I don't want Steph coming back from injury at a price point that I think doesn't reflect the fact that maybe Andrew Wiggins thinks he earns a few more shots. Maybe Oubre thinks he deserves a few more shots after how they played. Like, I think there are some ways that Steph has an outlier day to day. And then there are also some ways that are, I think, equally as important that he just gets squeezed enough here to not be the most useful.
I think it's appropriate. I would probably err on the side of being a little bit over. Okay. It's hard to spend your entire salary. Like it is. I mean, this is better than most of these other late slates we've had on FanDuel for two gamers. Like at least we have Vooch on the top end at center. We have Giannis at power forward. We've got Kawhi at small forward. We've got Paul George and Zach LaVine, Zach LaVine 7,500, just letting that be known. And then Steph Curry 9K. So at least we have like a spend up option that's viable at every single spot. But point guard, like as much as I like Satoransky, you're still looking at like a massive difference in projection between like him. Like right now we're pretty light on him. Looking at the 32 that you have for Steph, he's not going to grade out well by any means, but in a tournament, I don't know. I feel like he does give you like 30 security. Satoransky and Reggie Jackson and these guys down here, there's just such a way for them to fail. Like, I don't know. I do like this Bryn Forbes getting on top. We were talking about him a little bit earlier. I am shocked to see, I guess those minutes came back down to 20.75. Weren't they up at 24 before we started the show?
Let me see, because I actually haven't updated my minutes while we've been on. He was at 23 when we started the show.
Okay, so he's at 20.75, so it started to come down a little bit slightly. I still think 3,800 just gives you a different roster construction, but yeah, there's just nowhere to spend your salary at point guard other than Steph and Drew. Jordan Poole isn't even remotely in play anymore for me at 6,100. I would much rather just overly invest in Satoransky and Reggie Jackson and go that route. But Steph is just a product of his position not being that great, and every other position has, like, I would say, stronger pieces that you would be looking at pivoting off of some of these top tier guys.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable way to look at it. And that's weird. I still have Forbes at 23 minutes in this run, so I'm not sure if I'm.
Oh my God! Here. Ring a gong, Paul George. Are you freaking kidding me?
What Eric is getting mad about?
God, mother of.
You want to tell the people? Paul George ruled out. I'll tell the people. Paul George ruled out today with a foot issue. Okay.
All right. Okay. So now here's the thing. We got 23 minutes. You need to fire more lineups. You need to fire more lineups in the late slate. You are silly. He's going to be 15% owned in everything. Like, people will get rid of him in a lot of places, but he's still going to get ownership. People aren't going to react to that news fast enough. Also, if we're talking main slate, oh God. Okay. Do I even have any chances to get to Kawhi? I mean, Terrence Mann is now a priority for me over Thomas Satoransky. Let that be known too. I think
you can also on DraftKings global swap to LaVine if you felt like that was the easiest move too. You could also global swap to Middleton. It's actually a pretty good swap for Paul George. So I'll give Paul George that, and I'm good time to have been 65% Kawhi for the main slate. So
Are you really?
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Oh, sorry, I can't say that. Sorry, I can say that, I guess.
I am.
What's wrong with you as a person? What?
I've been over projecting Kawhi for weeks, so whenever that happens, I'm just riding it out when the money's there, and the money was there for old Kawhi.
No. You're Greg Ehrenberg Jr. You know exactly. You have cahoots with somebody on the Clippers, and this is a thing. He's got the Golden State in. You've got the Clippers in. 65% Kawhi. Are you kidding me? How many lineups did you make?
I did 45 today.
How good are you? How good are you at life?
I'm just so great. That's why. No, honestly, it's just Paul George is always a dude to me. They're not Paul George. Kawhi is always a dude to me that I just think projects well as the guy who can get you 40. And if your lineup is built around, I'm taking some volatility elsewhere, I just feel like Kawhi is one guy I land on a lot, just getting there. But I guess let's talk about it here. We're going to wait for a minute's update from Awesemo because that hasn't come through yet, as this news not exactly expected. And that's the joy of the NBA, folks.
The joy. That's one word for it. I have others if we want to keep going. Not joy, not happiness.
Joy of the NBA on full display right now. And
oh no,
I guess the minutes bump, Kennard becomes playable. I think everybody gets better for the Clippers in a meaningful way here, where you could honestly tell me you want to play Reggie Jackson. I now don't mind that at all. Even accounting for the ownership, you could tell me you're playing Marcus Morris. Credibly to me, I think you could play 4 Clippers here and not feel bad about it.
I mean, everything we've been talking about for the last 39 minutes is like completely irrelevant. I don't even know what to tell you. So all that interest that I had on the Bulls because I could justify it for being lower owned. Like, these guys are going to be under-owned compared to what they should be at this point in time. Like, it's just hard to imagine. Okay, now I got to just turn all of that Marcus Morris back into like somewhat Marcus Morris. This is ridiculous. This is so great.
That's one of those DFS things where you make the switch to Hartenstein and Hartenstein gets in foul trouble and is playing like he's playing right now, and Marcus Morris goes for 50.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, it's Hartenstein's at 7.25. I'm not going to freak out. I've been paying attention to him because now, especially, it's going to matter a lot what I'm going to do and who I want to go to. What is happening? Well, okay, so this is you and I with Paul George twice now, right? Or no, it was Greg the first time.
No, it was Greg the other time. Yeah. Greg loves talking about that one, and you're breaking down into tears. He loves
it's all right.
Chance he gets.
Everybody likes to watch me cry. You can say whatever you want, Eric Lindquist. This isn't FCC regulated. Thanks, Over Under. You're always a great pal. You're one of the real ones. I appreciate you.
All right,
Kennard season.
Update.
Oh God, don't tell me he projects Kennard for much. Please don't do it.
All right, I'm pulling everything in here, so I'll get my projections and Awesemos, and then we can reveal it here. But as Eric mentioned, everybody from the Clippers is going to be a better play now. This is already a game with a pretty high total. And even though Vegas, I'm sure, will take a few points off of it if you are trying to place bets, I think this is one that still should have a high enough total. And let's see what Alex has. I'm so excited. It's such a stupid, like, it's so dumb when this happens last minute, but this is your edge, guys. You got 20 minutes to plan this out. You're watching a show. We got all the things.
Make more lineups. Honestly, that's the best piece of news that I have for you right now. If I wasn't on a show, I mean, I'm already trying to make 150 here now. And we'll kind of see how this works. I think the Showdown probably makes the most sense if you're just trying to jam something quick, because it's one game. It's pretty easy to just uncheck Paul George and make sure that he's not in anything. And he'll still be 15-20%. You're basically getting your rate close to paid for. I don't think in the $15 he'll be that owned. He'll maybe be like 3-4%, but in low stakes stuff like the quarter, the dollar, if you have access to it, play it right now.
Yeah, so the projections updates for all these guys. The big jump is going to be to Kawhi, which is not a surprise here, but Awesemo up to 51 fantasy point projection for him. So if you can swap to him, certainly looks like a great play. If you can get him on the late slate, looks like a great play. Looks like the safest play out of the group. Zubac for him took a bit of a jump, but not a crazy jump. So the guys that look the best, I think, according to Awesemo, Terrence Mann looks more usable, but still not a great value, only a 5x value for Awesemo. But Batum looks better appreciably. Morris looks better appreciably. And Reggie Jackson looks better appreciably. So those three, if you were mixing and matching. Oh boy, four out of 5 Clippers to me. I think
Luke Kennard is starting.
Okay, so that's...
I hate
Kennard
everything.
only was getting 18 minutes from Awesemo, so that's going to be a jump too for old Luke.
Oh, why is this happening? Oh,
you never have a peaceful slate.
I mean,
on DraftKings, I don't even know who you play. I have 5 Clippers in my lineup, and I think it looks pretty good, and I think I'm comfortable with it. But like, am I going to play Wiggins at 7,400, Holiday at 7,200? Like, none of those look that good.
This is so dumb. This is literally the dumbest. I mean, again, just keep jamming lineups. I can't emphasize that enough. Like, just go make money. Go forth and conquer, young men and women. Equal opportunity.
Let's see what the premium Slack is saying. If there's anything good in here, if you have any questions, feel free to start dropping them. And I think we've talked a little bit about Golden State, and I know Eric's going to be doing some rebuilding of lineups here as we go. But let's talk Golden State for a second. Who's playable to you from Golden State? I think salary-wise, Draymond is playable. I think Wiggins is playable with the salary, but I'm going to go to Drew Holiday instead at that price point in the lineup that I'm building and fixing right now. But who's playable to you from Golden State, if anybody? You've already vocalized some concern for Wiseman, and I don't think that's gotten better with all the Clipper value that opened up.
I think Draymond Green becomes the best play from Golden State instantly. Just having Steph Curry's presence, we see some remarkable splits. I mean, all you have to do is click on his box score, and you can basically target when Steph Curry went out. Like, he went out like right around, there we are. The 28th definitely wasn't there, right around in that direction with Steph Curry. His last game, he played the 28th. So yeah, 17th. So he's just been out for just close to 2 weeks. Draymond Green in the last 3 has just been absolute garbage since Steph left. So I'm expecting him to revert back to that 50-point-ish upside. He has a guy that he just basically can vulture assists. Like, he's just going to throw him out to the wing. We know the rapport that those two have. So I like Draymond Green. If I'm going to go to one guy out of them, he's kind of the guy I want to be overweight on. James Wiseman, I'm going to be under on for the night slate. I think for the main slate on DraftKings, he's only 3%. I'm seeing 3.5%. So I guess that would be fine. But just, I think there's so many better spots to go. Take that 5,200 and just roll it over into Clippers and leave money on the table. Like, I don't really care if that's your only roster spot left. I think there's just more upside that exists with some of these other Clippers now. I'm just going to get to gobs of them here. But otherwise, Andrew Wiggins is somebody that I saw in chat a little bit earlier, has played great the last two, but you bring Steph Curry into the situation and you just lose some of that usage and he becomes a little bit overpriced. Well, not just a little bit, way overpriced on DraftKings at 7,400. So I'm going to be off of him there too.
Yeah, I think the better case could be made for going to Kelly Oubre, but ultimately to me, I think if you're playing one Golden State Warrior or one Warrior and one Bull, I think Satoransky being the one that Eric and I have agreed is probably the guy that we like the most. And I think that to me is the construction where you're just getting a good amount of Clippers, one Warrior max, maybe one Bull, and two Bulls max. And I think that's going to be the construction. You just have to take the Clippers value. Mm-hmm. People are down on Kennard. Yeah. I wouldn't be down on Kennard. Kennard has been a knockdown shooter this year. I know he gets a lot of crap, but 62.2% true shooting is a nice number for him. From three on the year, he's shooting. That can't be right. No, that's his percentage that he's actually putting up enough threes here, shooting 47% from three. Like, this guy's a really good shooter. I think people give him crap because he's probably not worth the contract right now, but if he's getting opportunity, like, he can knock down some shots and really make a volatile high upside game.
He basically single-handedly won that Atlanta game. Like, it was him and Terrence Mann, which is so weird to say because Kawhi and Paul George were both in, but they bring in that second unit. They were down 16. I was watching that game at home and it was just Luke Kennard and Terrence Mann show. Kennard, I believe, had 20 real points, put up 38.75 on the 22nd of March here. So I really like getting to some Kennard here. He's going to finally have some opportunity. He did get to 25 minutes against the Spurs in that low-scoring game, but again, this is a different situation just having Kawhi on the floor. And oh, by dear sweet Jesus, just fire him up. I'm going to get to a lot of him now too.
Yeah, I think Kennard looks like a stronger play, and I think people being down on him generally just as a player because he honestly he looks how he looks, he plays how he plays. He doesn't.
It's a bad contract.
Stand out. But yeah, and it's a bad contract that too. But Awesemo now giving him 24 minutes, which for me gives him a 21 fantasy point projection. I think that looks pretty good to me. I'm comfortable with that number. One thing though, Eric, which I now have to point out, you know what the price of Kennard is on DraftKings, 3,200. If he outscores Hartenstein, that's going to be very upsetting.
Why do you do the things that you do?
I got to note it. I'm on the same boat with you with Hartenstein.
Do you want me to cry on TV again, on live stream, on live YouTube in front of all these people? No, I'm not going to do it. I'm fine. This is fantastic, actually. This should be a good thing. I'm just trying to see. I'm trying to get, I have like way too many lineups on this main slate on DK, and it's so hard to get any Kawhi. I had like smatterings of Vooch and other things, and oh boy. And it's not like he's going to be unowned. Kawhi was already getting ownership. So it's not like you're pivoting onto a guy that's like that dramatically. He's a dramatically better play, but it's just so hard to get to him here. It's frustrating.
My God, the top scoring lineup on DK today and probably on FanDuel. I mean, FanDuel's always kind of crazy, I feel like, but on DK with Harden has 77, Westbrook has the 94.5. That looks like that'll be his final number there. Like value play is going off with McDaniels. I don't think that's going to be the highest owned, but Sabonis at 61, Towns over 60. Like it has to be Tatum over 50 now. Like it has to be a 400 point slate on DK easy.
Yeah, absolutely. It is.
Oh man.
Dude, this is remarkable. This is remarkable. Okay. I'm live in the 15. That would be a fun thing to hit in this situation. I need Terrence Mann to go off is what we just decided. 4,300. He's going to be my guy.
I could still use V doing more. I think he's up to 13 now. So that's, I don't know if that ship has sailed or not, but it does seem like it would still be a helpful ship. Also, Broderick Thomas, zero fantasy points. I just need to point out Broderick Thomas, 0 fantasy points in a quarter and 4 minutes. Obviously, it's not going to hold. Is that good? But yeah, it's not great for Broderick.
Yeah, they didn't get the alert from Alex Baker to the channel to take him out of your lineups, which is what I did. It was a great idea.
Chuck GT in the premium Slack, which is part of the really every membership we have and all the different tiers at awesemo.com/join. So feel free to get in there, really pick up an express package, which are very cheap, or get all the data available to you with the Awesemo Plus NBA packages. But either way, you're getting access to the premium Slack, and you can ask us questions much more easily than on YouTube, where the chats do go by pretty fast. Chuck GT asked, "Could you have any Vooch in this slate?" I don't mind having Vooch. I think there's certainly enough savings to go around at this point where you can get there. Yeah, I really don't have an issue with it. I think that I would still prioritize Kawhi by a decent margin. He's cheaper, but I think still like Vooch and Levine are very good, I think, tournament plays for the late slate, Eric. But how do you feel about these guys overall? Do you have any issue playing Vooch at a decent price point?
Yeah, that's who I wrote about in the Slate starter yesterday was don't overthink a one game sample size, that there were things to draw out from both perspectives where Troy Brown wasn't part of the rotation, and Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic, we know where the usage is going to come from for this team going forward. He only had 21% usage in his first game as a Bull. That was his lowest mark of all of 2021. Didn't have a single game with the Magic in this calendar year that was lower than that. So I expect that to only go up as he gets more comfortable. I'm sure it's just different guys that he's playing with, different vibes. Maybe they're apprehensive to give the ball rated from the get-go, but this is their guy. This is the guy that they brought in to be the duo. I don't think it's an overly great move for them as a basketball team, but from a fantasy perspective, it's nice to know at least where a lot of that fantasy goodness is going to come from. And Vooch is definitely it. So if you can jam him, he makes a lower owned target than he was before, because a lot of that is going to go towards Kawhi.
Arcathels is saying I have Vooch over Kawhi. I don't think that should be how that looks for you. That's
nope.
Like certainly in the realm of possibilities, we know playing DFS every day, doing shows, obviously covering DFS, like anything can happen, but you are taking a much lower probability outcome by thinking that Vooch projects better than Kawhi. And I don't know how you get to that point with data. Okay.
How do I report somebody when they say something like Steph is out on YouTube? I've never done it.
You can give them a little pause if you.
Okay, they need to go put user in timeout. There you are.
Make them run a lap. That's basically how
Think about what you've done. Funny TikTok compilation. You idiot.
How dare you, funny TikTok compilation? I expect the best news from funny TikTok compilation.
What an idiot. Get off my screen.
That's why you rely on the news god only. That's no funny TikToks from that guy. I'll tell you what.
Fake news. Just get off my screen. Think about what you've done for 5 minutes.
Make sure you're checking the pin tweet at Awesemo_com. Our own news god giving away a top shot moment of Jonas Valanciunas, who is, I don't think, playing that well today, but still a fantastic player overall, and a very nice little gift from our news god on there. Has been drawn pretty well in Top Shot from what I saw on our premium Slack. So make sure to go check out the pin tweet at Awesemo_com, and you can win that. I believe it's got a $115 value right now in the Top Shot marketplace whenever it's actually up and functional. Money time on Top Shot always. I got my pre-order pack that's going to have a Lou Dort, 34,000.
Jay Crowder, 35,000 something or another. Dude, this is incredible. So the other day, I ended up getting a Halliburton at the end, so it ended up losing its luster, but I had 3 consecutive Austin Rivers in my pack. It was so bad. I was like, this is a guy that, first of all, New York Knicks, that's hilarious because he's going to bounce around to 4 other teams before it's all said and done. Never played another game from that moment on. Rip Austin Rivers.
Hey, he's part of the Thunder now, I think, technically, but he's waiting for somebody to want him out there, and hopefully he'll achieve that at some point in his life.
That's hilarious.
Question from Jacob Kimball, asking only you. So I refuse to answer his question, but Jacob, one of our regulars, asking Connaughton or Kennard. No site given, so I don't know.
Kennard, it's okay. It would take, we're talking about Connaughton, who I think was 5,300. We have projected around 20 points, 21 points, I think is what I saw. I was talking about him. So when we talk about something on the front end, it's with the news that we have available. It has everything that we're talking about in that moment, the way it is. I was like, yeah, Connaughton's a guy that randomly I would rather play more than a Thanasis and Antetokounmpo or something. I would much rather go that direction. But now Kennard is 3,200 on DraftKings. Site given, doesn't really matter either way. Luke Kennard is just such a better play. And I don't expect that ownership to get crazy. There's only been 25 minutes we've had that starting lineup. What do we really think Luke Kennard's ownership is going to get to in low stakes stuff? I don't think it's going to get above 30. So fire him up big time.
And I'll give Arkathels' justification for why he thinks Kawhi would be behind Vooch. I just don't think Leonard will kill you if you don't have him. And why play all the low-price Clippers and Leonard? Something has to give. The reason you play, and this is not to lecture Arkathels as one of our regulars here, because people are going to view things differently, and it's a contrarian approach he's taking, which is never necessarily a bad thing. But when you're in a game with one of the higher combined totals on the overall slate, not just the night slate, and you also have a team, in the Clippers who's fairly competent, does shoot the ball, fairly well, does have some guys who could fill in and adequately, do their fractional amounts of Paul George's role. It's just that Paul George leaves so much behind. He's got a 29% usage rate. He assists at a fairly high level, 26% there. Like, there's so much production that he does on a given night that the assumption is if the Clippers do 100% of that, let alone, 90, 95% of that, it just opens up so much opportunity for both Kawhi and everybody else. So you kind of have to take that stab every night. And I know it sometimes gets lost in the shuffle, Eric, with like the main slates and how all the moving pieces that go. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on why exactly, or trying to explain to somebody why exactly like Kawhi and the semi-cheap Clippers would all of a sudden be such a better play with Paul George out.
No, you're like Chris Farley and Billy Madison. That is correct. It's a little bit of that. So you pretty much hit all the highlights for him. And again, well, I understand the thinking, like Connaughton's going to be unowned on this slate. So yeah, you can take a couple shots, hope for a minute's upside. If this game blows out, I feel like he's a guy who has closed enough games over the course of the last couple of years where he does play garbage time. He's somebody that they kind of put out there to be the focal point of garbage time. So yeah, take some shots on it if you expect that game to blow out, but the value on the other side is just so good. And like Kennard, it's not like he's going to not see garbage time either. So fire it up.
Yeah, that's just a lot of opportunity that opens up. Jordan, one of our members here on the YouTube channel, which you can always hit that join button if you're on the desktop version of YouTube. And also, we got 415 people in here. Help us get to 100 likes, guys. We only need 16 likes to get there. So we'll give you guys some free ownership for the Showdown slate, because Jordan's one of our regulars in the chat, and not producer Jordan, a different Jordan entirely, but one of our friendly faces we're seeing. So I'll give you guys some of the top owned plays for the single game and Showdown. And he asked for FanDuel, so I'll do that one first. On FanDuel, the top five: Giannis at 99%, Kawhi at 94%. This also does reflect the Paul George being out news, so keep that in mind. It does reflect it. Marcus Morris, 37% is number 3. Reggie Jackson, 33% is number 4. And Ivica Zubac, number 5 at 33%. MVP ownership going heavily to Giannis, so I think that's still probably the better play than Kawhi, but Kawhi going to be less owned at MVP. On DraftKings, the top five: Giannis 95%, Kawhi at 90%, Chris Middleton at 51%, Drew Holiday at 46%, and Ivica Zubac at 43%. And then the captain ownership there going to Giannis. And Eric, I'll ask you real fast, at captain ownership, if we have a chalky Giannis at 29 and Kawhi at about low 20s, would you want to go to Kawhi over Giannis? Would you feel more comfortable going to Giannis, or would you take a flyer on pretty much anybody else? They're all under 10% at captain on DK.
I think because of the value that exists on this slate now, I would have, if I were playing more in the Showdown, I have one lineup. I would have 50% Giannis, I'd have 50% Kawhi, and I would just kind of split it that way. I find it very difficult for one of those two not to be the highest grossing dudes on this entire game. Middleton has the outside shot. If I was going to take other shots on other guys, Drew, we've seen an upside with, but not necessarily always alongside Giannis. So I think I would probably gear towards the side. When I have late news like this, I always try to jam in and Showdown some of the top dudes, because it just seems like more times than not, you're losing your upside by trying to like find that ground to be able to jam in every single stud, as opposed to just taking the sure thing and then putting them alongside, a guy like Marcus Morris, who projects out so much better, Zubats, who projects out better, like some of these mid-tier plays.
I wouldn't hate the idea of mixing and matching the Clippers value at captain, just because I think that's going to allow you to get to Giannis, Kawhi, Middleton, and Drew. So I think if we're treating the Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, Nick Batum as sort of the third piece that's going to benefit to some extent, maybe to a very great extent, with Paul George out. I guess Kennard too, you could put in there, though he's not even a factor at all. I think if you put him in captain, you might just have too much money left behind. But I think, to me, if you cycle through those guys and then try to just cram in all the star plays who have a floor and a decent ceiling, I think that's one approach that could get different.
Yeah,
but for
I don't
me,
mind that.
Kawhi captain besides that.
Yeah, that sounds great too. I mean, it's really kind of just a preference thing on that. I get both routes of it. I don't know how to necessarily, I think Buzzard, make sure you guys check out some of those videos he does where he covers Showdown. He's just an absolute master at it. To Colts, if you look him up, he is really, really good at them. I believe he split another one yesterday or Sunday. Yesterday was Sunday. I don't even know what's going on right now, but I'm pretty sure those are things you want to check out, some of those videos that he does for the premium.
Quincy Collins saying y'all fading Giannis on a 2-gamer. I don't think at this point that's the wise move. I think putting him and Kawhi is really, I think that's what I would be building every lineup around today for the late slate.
Fact.
We got also 99 likes, just one like, guys. I just need one of you to hit the like button right now. We can't, my OCD, like we're gonna have to do a midnight, a marathon stream, which poor Tyler and Eric do. We all actually, I want to eat dinner too. So I don't want to be here all night, but we need to get that 100th like because otherwise
we do.
Eric will cry or he won't cry. I don't know what's more appealing. We got there. 101. Thank you.
What do you guys want from me? I'll do it. I'm a dancing pony. I'm happy for it.
They're 115. You guys are too good. We appreciate it. We got about seconds left to lock by the time you guys hear this. So get those lineups in and yeah, make sure actually, let's see the night slate ownership, if that got a refresh. Night slate ownership, Kawhi, now the chalk, Reggie Jackson, also even more chalky, and Luke Kennard going to be owned a good amount, but honestly, 3,200 on DK. I don't see how you wouldn't have done that. Luke Kennard on FanDuel, much less of a question, but the minimum salary and 27% owned on FanDuel. So there you go. Any final thoughts here, Eric, before we call it quits? We got 2 more late slate shows left before this show sits on the shelf and the MLB takes over. So make it good. Give them all the plugs you want, Eric.
Oh my goodness. All the things. So we've got a bunch of MLB content coming. I'm going to be doing Wednesdays. I'm going to be doing the Live Before Lock PGA with Ben Raza. Look next week for us, Masters. The Masters is coming back. So I'm super excited for that, which is just so crazy. It's the last major that got played. Now it's coming back around for another cycle this year. I'll be doing a lot of MLB content, doing Live Before Lock on Fridays for that, and continuing on with my good friend Chris Spags over here. We're going to be doing the tip off tomorrow and Wednesday, I believe, and it'll have its own little section of the world as we break into MLB and NBA streams breaking up.
Yeah, I'll be on that tip-off tomorrow with Eric, as he mentioned. Got that the next 2 days. And last 2 late slate shows coming up here tomorrow night and Wednesday night. It'll be me and nerd-ass Greg here. And Eric, if you want to come in on Wednesday, do some work for free, feel free to hop in and join. Make it a 3-man. No pressure, though. I know Wednesdays can be tough, but make sure to check out the last couple shows here. And we appreciate all you guys. I, especially as somebody who's been doing every single one of these for the last month or so, appreciate all you guys tuning in and giving us a little love here as we do wind the show down and MLB starts to take hold of all of our lives again. We appreciate you all. Hope you enjoy the games tonight. Make sure to go to awesemo.com/join. Use that promo code starting with the number 9 on there. That is 9 days of Awesemo plus MLB for just $9. That'll help get you started with the season coming up here on Thursday. Follow at Eric Lindquist, follow at Chris Spags, follow at Awesemo_com. We'll be back with you guys again very soon. So enjoy your nights. Good luck.